If both Braeden Davis and Tyler Kasak are unavailable to go this weekend, Penn State's still got plenty of options to fill those voids.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State Wrestling. My name is Zach Seyko, and I am your host of Locked On Nittany Lions. That is Jeff Byers, the voice of Penn State Wrestling. He is also the morning show host of 98.7 The Fox, In-State College, Fox Sports Radio affiliate, and all the links to his work outside of wrestling will be down in the description. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Well, Jeff, we have a doubleheader dual meet this weekend. You will be on the road in Columbus and then Champaign for Ohio State versus Illinois. So we're going to talk about some of the key individual matchups and what potentially would be Braeden Davis, Tyler Kasak. They're dealing with bumps and bruises. Got an update from Cael Sanderson that doesn't sound like anything's too concerning, but that doesn't mean that they necessarily will be in the lineup this weekend, because there are bigger fish to fry. Because as Cael Sanderson framed it with, hey, if this was the Big Ten tournament or the NCAA tournament, specifically referring to Braeden Davis, that he would go. So I think that's positive intel that if the need was there, Davis and Kasak could wrestle. But Penn State, they have plenty of options to compete, and they should win. They will win both of these dual meets respectively, with or without Davis and Kasak in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly should. I think both teams, Ohio State especially, is very good top to bottom. If both Davis and Kasak are out, I think they're is a path, maybe an unlikely path, but a path there to victory for Ohio State. But, we've talked about the depth that Penn State has and the top to bottom strength of the lineup. And certainly I think Penn State, even without those two, will be prohibitive favorites in both duels. But, we're certainly at the time of the year where your focus is on making sure this team is as healthy and ready to go for the postseason as it can be.
And Tyler Kasak, I mean, he's really gotten beat up over the past few weeks between just the blood timeouts and getting jabbed in the eye and then going into concussion protocol because he hit his head off of the mat. So, Jeff, with what you know, with what you're able to share, is this precautionary? Is this a sign of concern? Because it sounds like, again, there's hopeful optimism that, yes, Braeden Davis would be available under the circumstances, but don't push him if you don't need him. Kind of the same thing with Tyler Kasak here. It sounds like Cael had said that basically they have to keep him away from trying to compete if he's not 100%, that they almost have to bar him from trying to push himself a little too much here. So what is the status from what you saw actually unfold between when Kasak went down on the mat against Maryland?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Kasak, it's really the medical decision as to whether he's cleared or not, and they're comfortable with where he's at in terms of the concussion protocol and the risk. Then there's going to be a risk moving forward, obviously, with him and the potential for further concussions. So that's always a concern once that occurs. Braeden Davis, I think, will be fine. Again, I think it's trying to gauge when to let him back into live competition without jeopardizing anything being further complicated for his postseason. So I don't know anything. I mean, I don't know whether either would be available this weekend. I think, my guess, and it's just a guess, is that probably neither would go this weekend. And then I think very likely you'll see both of them in there against Americans, provided they've been medically cleared. And again, with Kasak in particular, I think you you rely on the medical professionals there to let you know whether or not he's able to go. And that's just either he is or he isn't. If he is, certainly the coaches are going to put him in there because he's a tremendous asset for the program.
And obviously it's the right thing to do for a variety of reasons. Yes, because there are bigger goals to accomplish with the Big Ten tournament, most importantly the NCAA tournament, because even coach brought it up in the media availability this week that Carter Starachi dealt with this similar situation once upon a time where he had to forfeit, go out there in the Big Ten tournament, and then it obviously created the drama and the uncertainty as it was. Everything turned out for the best, but if there's no point to risk it, don't do it. So above all else, these two wrestlers need to be 100%. And there is more or less of a precedent here with what Starachi dealt with just a season ago.
Yeah. And again, I think, every situation's a little different, and, each injury's a little different. So, how people handle it and what they do to ready their bodies. Again, you're going to get everybody as close to 100% as you can, as we saw with Starachi last year. And, there have been plenty of other Starachi as sophomore year, same thing with the rest. I mean, Penn State's had plenty of guys go out far less than 100% and go win national titles, but certainly makes it a more difficult challenge. And certainly at this time of the year, again, you're going to err on the side of caution because you're trying to get your team as rested, healed, and ready to go for the postseason as you can, because that's where these kids' ultimate objectives lie.
At 133, Kyson Garcia has filled in appropriately. I've been very impressed with Garcia as a redshirt freshman, especially being thrusted into Big Ten action. But I want to focus on 157 before we evaluate what Garcia has done. At 157, it's kind of a big question mark. Okay, let's assume that Kasak does not go this weekend for the sake of the conversation. Alex Facundo and Kasak were in a battle for the starting spot, and then we learned that Facundo was actually dealing with an injury himself, and it was going to be a multi-week, potentially month-to-month situation. And now there's kind of, because Kale had said that Alex Facundo's not the immediate answer at 157 if Kasak is unavailable. So they have plenty of options there between what he told us about, hey, at 149, we could bump up the likes of Connor Pierce or a David Evans. And then I like the idea of Joe Seeley, but I know that he's wrestling at 165. So would he have to cut weight? So there's plenty of options to fill in for Kasak, and ones that could win at that 157 spot. I won't say handedly, but maybe decisively.
Yeah, I think both Connor Pierce and David Evans are terrific wrestlers. Evans is a little funkier wrestler, and I think Pierce has just steadily gotten better and better. So I think both of those guys, can go in there and compete. Now, whether or not they can win at 157 with the competition they're facing this weekend, I think that's, we'll find out, I guess, if Kasak can't go. But I think they're both going to go out there, either one, go out there and be very competitive, and certainly, give Penn State a good representation at the weight. And I think, again, right now, if you're Penn State, you're wanting to put your best team, whatever that may look like, out for each duel. And so you've got to evaluate matchups and kind of just a gut feeling on how some of these kids will react in the different situations. I do think Kyson Garcia, going back to 133, has been really good in terms of the effort and the really even the performance that he's given to this point. He's a kid that just has the right attitude, loves the sport, learns every day, and I think is excited for the opportunity to go out there and compete for Penn State.
And at 157, to finish up this segment, Alex Facundo, there's kind of an understanding that maybe he's going through a medical red shirt, because Kale was not necessarily adamant, but pretty direct when saying that, hey, Facundo's probably not the option at 157 if Kasak's unavailable, which kind of leads to, okay, is it going to be Pierce? Is it going to be Evans? Is there an outside chance that the true freshman and Joe Seeley just gets a chance? But it would make sense for Facundo, based on where they are in the season, to take that medical red shirt if it is available.
Yeah, that would be my expectation here at this point. And again, I think both Pierce and Evans are solid options there at 157. I think they're both competitive guys and will go out there and, hold their own. Again, whether or not you go out there and get a win against the competition they'll be facing this weekend. We'll see. But I think they'll go out there and be very competitive.
Penn State should be expected to win these dual meets, assuming that both Braeden Davis and Tyler Kasak are unavailable. They still should win against Ohio State and Illinois very decisively. We're going to go through some of those key battles, including the one that's been a Big Ten championship, an NCAA final. It was also at the NWCA All-Star Classic. Beau Bartlett versus Jesse Mendez. Once again, we're going to pick up with that matchup after the break. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off and want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Using FanDuel's live betting feature is great because it'll keep you in every moment and make the game exciting. Whether you're backing a team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, you'll feel like you never missed your chance. Plus, the app is super easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That is FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Beau Bartlett, Jesse Mendez, these two get to, well, it's been all Jesse Mendez as of late. It's not like they're going back and forth trading punches. It's Beau Bartlett won the regular season dual meet matchup. It feels like forever ago because of how many times they've met in between now, but then it's the All-Star Classic, and then before that it's the NCAA Finals, and before that it's the Big Ten Finals. So whatever Bartlett did to secure that victory the first time around, Jesse Mendez has picked that up and learned from whatever he needed to and has taken that and ran with it to this point. Jeff, I mean, it's also fair to say that Jesse Mendez is just that elite, and it's not to say that Beau Bartlett isn't, but when I look at Jesse Mendez, I do see him, based on the way that he competed at the Olympic team trials and how he's done on the international circuit, that Mendez, if he continues this trend, could be one of the faces of United States wrestling. Yes, and united for the country in due time.
Yeah, no, he is definitely a dynamic force and has had an absolutely tremendous season this year. I will say, I think both Andrew Alira's and Beau Bartlett are elite as well, and I think this weight class is just going to be very, very exciting. Certainly Big Tens, but at nationals, and I really think any of those three, they're one-move bouts, and Mendez has been the guy in the last couple of times that he and Bartlett have met to get the move, but it was a counter, in the finals. Great counter. I mean, you give him credit. That's part of wrestling, but Bartlett was, literally a whisker away from securing the title there. And I think, again, in the All-Star meeting, same thing. Mendez got a very good takedown, and that ended up being the difference. So I don't think there's much separating those two. And regardless of what happens Friday night, I think it's still, at least in Penn State's mind, a toss-up out going into both Big Tens and the NCAAs. And again, I think all three of those top guys there are certainly capable of going out and winning a national title and knocking the other two off in a given tournament. But yeah, I mean, Mendez is rightfully favored and certainly has looked the part of the #1 wrestler throughout this season. He has just been very much on point. But again, I don't think there's much separating the Mendez and Bartlett there.
I agree wholeheartedly. I don't think it's not that Bartlett losing by major decision, losing by tech fall. It's just been a string of victories that hasn't been broken to this point, and Jesse Mendez continues to get rolling. Like I said, I think he has world potential type here for what I've seen from him. It's strictly my opinion, but Bartlett keeps it close. I mean, this is just, the difference is a takedown, and it's a final second. Aside from the All-Star Classic, it's a last second takedown. It was a sudden victory in Bartlett's favor the first time, and then losing in the final seconds in regulation, respectively, those other two times outside of the All-Star Classic. So Bartlett's not far off. Jeff, what what gives you the confidence that Bartlett is either, regardless of, like you said, the outcome, is closer to Mendez this time around than maybe these past 3 meetings?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that, again, we're one move here or there from winning those matches. And I think, Beau's obviously got a lot of experience under his belt now, and I think has, an appreciation for what it is he's trying to do with the sport when he's out there. And I think anytime you get elite competitors meeting, the guy that loses, to me, always has a little bit of an edge that next time, just because they know that there's adjustments they need to make. They're breaking it down and trying to figure out ways to beat the guy. It's a little harder to break down and self-evaluate and be critical when you win, which isn't to say you can't do it. And I think a guy like Mendez, I'm sure, does do that and is self-critical regardless. So, again, I think it'll be a great match. I think it'll be a fun match to watch as a fan, and regardless of the outcome, I think a good chance we see it at least once more, and probably a pretty good chance we see it a couple of more times yet this season. And I'll sign up each time, because I think, again, they're 2 elite wrestlers at a weight class that really has 3 guys that to me are just very special.
It would only be fitting if they meet 2 more times after this, and that is fully my expectation. Jeff, let's look at the remainder of this Ohio State lineup. So this is going to go down this Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern time in Columbus, for anyone that's not aware. And Ohio State's the number 6 dual meet team, and I think they're going to make this one respectable, competitive. I don't think Penn State finishes them off like they did to the likes of, obviously, shutting out Michigan, but to where it was so decisive that it was 8-2 against an Iowa in terms of overall head-to-head matchups. I mean, there are some good ones here that are toss-ups. Brendan McCrone has been hit or miss. He's kind of on days there, he looks elite, and I'm referring to 125 for Luke Lillidahl here, but Brendan McCrone against Luke Lillidahl. You'd like to see Braeden Davis and Nick Pizakis at 133, Dylan D'Amelio at 149 against Shane Van Ness, Sammy Sasso. I mean, just a tip of the cap that I do not have to everything that Sammy Sasso has gone through, and for him to still compete and wrestle, just my utmost respect to him and his drive to get out there and do what he loves. Over at 157, Patty Gallagher at 165 going up against Mitchell Messenbring. Carson Harshla at 174 gives a top 5 matchup with Levi Haynes, and then Ryder Rogotsky, not to the caliber of a Carter Starachi, and then there's Nick Feldman, heavyweight, that has all the potential in the world, but not quite to the status of Greg Kirkfleet. So all of these are some really talented opponents that are going to be seen in the Big Ten tournament, in the NCAA tournament. Which matchup do you have circled the most outside of a Jesse Mendez and a Beau Bartlett?
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple. Carson Harshla and Levi Haynes, I think, could put on a show. Both those guys are capable of getting big points in a hurry, and I think both are willing to go for it. So I think that could be a really entertaining match at 174. I think much the same at 149. D'Amelio is a dangerous wrestler. Shane Van Ness is obviously very dangerous in his own right, but I think both of those bouts have the potential to be high-scoring, entertaining affairs. Josh Barr's got to be on guard. Seth Shoemate is a really dangerous guy, really good with the upper body throws. And Ryder Rogotsky, actually, same thing for Carter Starachi at 184. Ohio State will be looking to catch lightning in a bottle there. But I think both of those bouts, Penn State rightfully is a strong favorite. But again, both dangerous opponents there for Penn State. And really, I feel for Nick Feldman and Sammy Sasso is the ultimate inspirational story here in our sport, and what that kid is willing to do and overcome just to get out there and participate is beyond impressive. And I don't know anybody that doesn't salute Sammy Sasso for what he is giving to the sport and to that Ohio State program. And Nick Feldman, I kind of feel badly for too. He clearly is not 100%. The neck and back injuries or issues are I mean, there's just no question that's hampering him from being what he could be. He's a darn good wrestler as it is. But I mean, you can see he's not moving the way he was when he was fully healthy. So that's just a tough situation for a couple of their guys. Now, Feldman could still end up being an All-American. He's just that tough of a kid mentally. But, it's tough for Sasso and Feldman when the body won't do what it was able to do and what you want it to be able to do. So, but yeah, to me, 49 and 74 are probably the two bouts I'm circling as aside from 141 that would be at least have the potential to be wildly entertaining.
Ohio State. Before we get to Illinois, I think there's a misunderstanding about this Buckeyes team. If they get healthy, if they get right at the right time, I mean, this is a team that I think could really make some noise at the NCAA tournament in the team standings. We'll discuss that more, then talk about some key matchups with the Fighting Illini on the other side of this break. So this isn't even the best iteration of this Ohio State team, and particularly because Rocco Welsh ended up taking a red shirt. That was probably a part of the plan, but it was certainly surprising to me when it happened before the season started, because that was the championship at 174. And Rocco Welsh, I know Carter Starachi wasn't 100%, but Welsh, gave him a fight. Nobody scored in that bout. Nobody scored a lot of points in that bout, but Welsh was shut out. So you knew at least that he was going to give you elite caliber defense and be somebody that could make the championship again this upcoming season. I still think, but you mentioned, hey, Feldman's not 100%. Obviously, Sammy Sasso is just battling his way back to even be competitive at this point in time. And then there's just some of the younger wrestlers in this lineup for Ohio State. Like, you're still kind of waiting for Brendan McCrone to really hit his stride, and Nick Bouzakis, doesn't seem to be too far off either. So this is an Ohio State team that I believe, if they hit their stride in March, I think they could challenge Iowa and Oklahoma State for that second spot.
Yeah, I think they at least could get, in the top four there, and those are the teams that get the trophies at the end of the year. I think, they'll have their work cut out with some of the other teams in there. Nebraska just looks, to me, really good and has maybe a little more top-end talent. But, yeah, I mean, I think Ohio State – if they can get a couple of guys to hit at the national tournament, Bouzakis and D'Amelio are probably the two guys that they would circle as, man, if they can have hot tournaments, and obviously if Mendez wins a title and Harchley can finish in the top, at least the top five, top three or four. Yeah, I mean, I think they could certainly be a team that factors in there in the race for a top four finish, which is a big deal. And it's I think Ohio State's got a really good dual meet team, maybe a better dual meet team even than a tournament team. Although, again, I think they certainly have the potential to be a very good tournament team as well. But there's really no hole in the lineup where, they send somebody out and like, that's, kind of an automatic W for the other team. It's a solid lineup top to bottom.
And then that leads us into Illinois. So Friday night dual meet and then a Sunday afternoon dual meet with the Fighting Illini. And this is a team that's ranked top 20 when it comes to the dual meet rankings. And there are you would like to see in a perfect world, and maybe that happens at the Big Ten tournament. Maybe it happens at the NCAA tournament. A Braeden Davis against a Lucas Bird, who participated at the All-Star Classic before the season began. And then let's circle. And then there's Zach Bronigal as well, who did at 197. How about we zoom in on 184, because this is a name that Penn State fans should be very familiar with. Jeff, I know that you are. Edmund Ruth, ranked number 12, going up against Carter Starachi, but that's younger brother of the famous, multi-NCAA champion, Ed Ruth.
Yeah, and, and Edmund, I mean, Penn State fans remember Edmund tagging along with Ed at the dual meets, and just great kid, and, a lot of fun to be around, and a very good wrestler. I think, certainly Carter Starachi's going to be pretty heavy favorite in this particular bout, but Ruth is another one of these dangerous wrestlers. Again, he can get to rolling around, and he can certainly cradle you up the way Ed used to cradle folks up. So, Carter certainly is aware of him and knows what he has to do. But yeah, I think it'll be a fun match, probably for most Penn State fans to tune in and watch.
He finished seventh last season as an All-American. I do more or less remember Edmond's run because it wasn't necessarily shocking, but it was certainly respectable at 184, 174, excuse me. And then let's jump to Zach Bronigal at 197. He wrestled at the All-Star Classic as well. This is another one of those matchups where Josh Barr's just put to the test. And that's great. That's what I want to see for Josh Barr, especially coming off of that victory against Jacob Cardenas, because you don't want that to be the mountaintop. You don't want that to be his peak. He still has to, you're going to face some challenges along the way, and ones that will certainly come back around in the form of Cardenas part 2, maybe part 3, definitely Stephen Buchanan at some point in time as well.
Yeah, and Bronigal's, again, a very experienced wrestler, obviously very talented. I think another good test. It just seems like that's all Josh Barr is getting here down the stretch is a good test. And
that's great.
and I think that's wonderful preparation for the postseason tournament. I'm really impressed with the way Josh, keeps his composure, doesn't really get rattled by anything that's going on out there on the mat. And again, he's a guy that just, you can see it. He just is learning little things, picking up things, adjusting his game as he goes along here. And again, it's a very good weight class, a lot of very talented guys. But I think Josh Barr is right in the mix there among the 4 or 5, at least in my mind, the top 4 or 5 legitimate contenders for a national title here this season.
Is Josh Barr there? Is there more to his game? Has he reached his peak because we've mentioned that he is in the top 4. He should be, expect him to be a semifinalist. If all things go well, expect him to be there at the NCAA semifinals, and with the right body of work could easily be in the NCAA championship at 197. We'll see from there, but is there still more that you'd like to see from Josh Barr, or is he's starting to truly reach his peak after this Cardenas win?
Well, I mean, the one thing that I'll adopt the Cal mantra here, which is there's always room for improvement, and these guys, and listen, we've seen it. Carter Starace obviously was good enough to win a national title as a freshman. He is miles beyond where he was that freshman year. So with all of these guys, I mean, the goal obviously is each successive year you should be a substantially better wrestler. And we talk about the Penn State kids jumping levels. I think Penn State in this program does a better job of that more consistently across the board than any program. And it's why Penn State is where it's at, is because even the national champions that are coming back, you watch them one year after the other, and you can see, I mean, it's noticeable. Oh, that guy's more dominant. Oh, he's added to his top game, and now guys can't get away from him. Oh, now he can't be held down. He always gets away, even against really good riders. Like these guys just keep making those improvements. So, Josh Barr is right there right now in terms of competing for a national title. Do I think he's going to get a lot better over the coming years? I do, because that's just what these guys do. And it's, it starts with the kids themselves. I mean, they have to be motivated and driven by the right reasons. And I think these guys are, and certainly Josh Barr is. And then, this coaching staff is going to give you every opportunity to take those jumps in levels of wrestling from year to year.
And that'll do it for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Thank you so much for checking out this episode. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments section about the Ohio State dual meet and Illinois. So Penn State's on the road in Columbus and then Champaign. 7 p.m. start for the Ohio State duel. 6:40 start on the broadcast. Jeff will have the call at 6:40 on GoPSUSports.com. And then on Sunday against Illinois, 2 p.m. dual meet start, 1:40 broadcast airtime over at GoPSUSports.com. And links to Jeff's work outside of wrestling coverage will be down in the description for 98.7 the Fox Sports Radio affiliate in State College. Jeff, thanks so much again for the time. As always, the perspective, the analysis, and the insight around Penn State wrestling.
Thanks, Zach. I appreciate it.
And again, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. For your second listen and watch, check out Locked On Big Ten with host Craig Sheeman. Craig puts the Big Ten first when others overlook the conference, but he's got you covered with all 18 teams within the conference. That's why it's called Locked On Big Ten. You can find it available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.